What would you sacrifice for unlimited power? In the Age of Legends, Mierin Eronaile, brilliant, beautiful, and ruthlessly ambitious, sacrificed everything. Before she became Lanfear, before the breaking that shattered civilization, Mierin walked the gleaming crystal spires of a world perfected, disease vanquished, hunger forgotten, aging slowed to a whisper. Channelers crafted wonders that blended magic and technology in seamless harmony as people stepped through gateways to traverse continents in a single stride, paradise by any measure. Until Mierin's hunger for glory led her to drill into the very fabric of creation. Her discovery unleashed a darkness that would corrupt her soul, drive men to madness, and fracture reality itself. The tragedy of Mierin isn't merely a tale of evil born. It's the haunting story of how brilliance, when poisoned by obsession, can destroy everything it once sought to elevate. Beyond the shining towers and miraculous achievements of the Age of Legends lurks the shadow of what Mierin became, and the broken world left in her wake. Welcome to an episode of Curiosity Cured. Part 1. The Early Years of Mierin Eronaile. Mierin Eronaile was born with extraordinary potential. As an Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends, which meant simply servant of all rather than the later organization, she possessed a connection to the One Power that placed her among the strongest channelers alive. Only two individuals surpassed her in raw strength: the brilliant philosopher-scientist Mierin Eronaile and the charismatic leader Lews Therin Telamon. The Aes Sedai of this era were researchers, healers, and builders. They used the One Power to advance civilization, creating wonders that would be lost for millennia after the breaking. Mierin specialized in power research, seeking to understand its fundamental nature and potential applications. Her intellect matched her ambition. She wasn't content with merely using the power as others did. She sought to revolutionize it. The limitation that frustrated Mierin most was the gendered division of the One Power. Men drew from Sedane, women from Sedar, two halves of the same force that worked in fundamentally different ways. When men and women worked together in circles, they could achieve wonders, but neither gender could directly access the other's half of the power. This division seemed arbitrary to Mierin, a limitation she believed could be overcome. But Mierin's research wasn't driven solely by scientific curiosity. Her personal life had become deeply entwined with her professional ambitions, centered around one man, Lews Therin Telamon. Lews Therin Telamon was the epitome of the Age of Legends ideals: powerful in the One Power, charismatic, dedicated to public service, and possessing a moral compass that earned him the title the Dragon, a title of honor rather than fear in that era. He was everything Mierin wanted, and for a time they were together. Their relationship was intense but ultimately doomed. Where Lews Therin sought partnership, Mierin desired possession. Where he offered love, she demanded devotion. Historical records suggest that Mierin's relationship with Lews Therin was characterized by her attempts to control and direct him, to shape him into the figure she believed he should be, rather than accepting who he was. When Lews Therin ended their relationship, Mierin's hurt turned to resentment. And when he later married Ilyena Sunhair, a woman whose golden beauty was matched by her kindness and wisdom, Mierin's resentment transformed into something darker. She couldn't accept that Lews Therin had chosen another. In her mind, he had been manipulated, misled, or simply made a mistake that he would eventually recognize. This rejection became the catalyst for Mierin's most ambitious and catastrophic research project. In the waning years of the Age of Legends, Mierin and her research team at the Column Dawn, the premier research institution of the era, made a breakthrough. Or so they believed. Mierin claimed to have detected a source of power outside the pattern itself, a reservoir of energy that was neither Sedane nor Sedar. She theorized that this energy could be accessed by both men and women equally, eliminating the gendered division of the One Power. The implications were revolutionary. If Mierin was correct, she would transform the very foundation of their society. More importantly to her, she would have made a discovery that even Lews Therin couldn't ignore. her name would be forever linked with the greatest advancement in power research in history. Using the research facility at Sharam, a perfect floating sphere above the Kalamdan, Mierin and her team constructed a specialized Sa'angreal to pierce the pattern and access this new energy source. The experiment proceeded, and initially it seemed successful. They detected something beyond the pattern, something immense and powerful. What Mierin didn't realize was that she hadn't discovered a new source of power. Instead, she had detected the prison of the Dark One, a cosmic force of evil that had been sealed away since the creation of the world. And her experiment didn't simply detect this prison, it drilled a hole into it. This was the bore, a thin spot in the pattern that allowed the Dark One's influence to seep into the world. It was the beginning of the end for the Age of Legends. The effects weren't immediately catastrophic. At first, the changes were subtle, an increase in violent crime in a society that had nearly eliminated it, a rise in selfish behavior, a gradual darkening of the collective mood. But as the bore widened, the Dark One's influence grew stronger. Mierin's reputation was ruined. Her experiment was quickly recognized as the source of the growing problems, and she found herself ostracized from the scientific community. Luz Theron, now serving as the first among servants, effectively the world's leader, was at the forefront of efforts to understand and contain the damage she had caused. In her isolation and shame, Mierin became vulnerable to the very force she had unwittingly released. The Dark One spoke to her, offered her power beyond her dreams, promised her that Luz Theron would be hers again. And Mierin, driven by ambition and obsession, listened. She wasn't the first to turn to the shadow, but she was among the most significant. When she pledged herself to the Dark One, she abandoned the name Mierin Eronaile and embraced a new identity, Lanfear, the daughter of the night. Lanfear's transformation was more than just a change of name. The Dark One granted her powers beyond what even her considerable talent had allowed. She mastered dreamwalking, the ability to enter and manipulate Teleranrad, the world of dreams. She developed talents in mind control and illusion that exceeded almost any other channeler. And she gained a form of immortality, her aging slowed to a crawl. But what truly set Lanfear apart from the other Forsaken, the name given to the 13 most powerful servants of the Dark One, was her motivation. While others like Ishmael joined for philosophical reasons, Demandred for revenge, or Grandal for luxury and self-indulgence, Lanfear's primary driver remained Luz Theron. Her plan was never to serve the Dark One indefinitely. She intended to use the Dark One's power to claim Luz Theron for herself, to rule the world with him at her side. In her twisted logic, she believed that when Luz Theron saw the power she could offer, he would abandon Ilyena and return to her. This fundamental misunderstanding of Luz Theron's character would define Lanfear's actions for millennia to come. When the Dark One finally grew strong enough, the War of Power began, a global conflict that would last 10 years and destroy the civilization of the Age of Legends. During this time, Lanfear served as one of the Dark One's generals, but her methods differed from the other Forsaken. While Demandred led armies in the field and Samael destroyed cities, Lanfear preferred to work through manipulation and deception. She created networks of dark friends, human followers of the shadow, and used her powers of compulsion and dreamwalking to influence events from the shadows. All the while, she continued her obsession with Luz Theron. Historical records suggest that she repeatedly attempted to capture him, sending messages offering to save him if he would join her. Each rejection only fueled her rage and determination. The War of Power reached its climax when Luz Theron led the forces of light in a desperate strike against the Dark One's forces at Shayol Ghul, the mountain where the bore was located. They succeeded in pushing back the Shadow's forces, but they couldn't repair the bore completely. In a last, desperate measure, Luz Theron and the 100 companions, powerful male Aes Sedai who followed him, used 7 seals made of Quendalar, Heartstone, to create a new prison for the Dark One. The prison wasn't perfect, but it was enough to prevent the Dark One from breaking free entirely. However, in the moment of sealing, the Dark One tainted Sedane, the male half of the One Power. Every male channeler who had participated in the sealing, including Lews Therin himself, was driven instantly insane, and every male channeler who would ever touch Sedane in the future would eventually suffer the same fate. Lanfear and the other Forsaken were trapped at Shayol Ghul when the sealing occurred, locked away in a dreamless sleep that would last for over 3,000 years. Part 2. Awakening. The breaking of the world followed as the male Aes Sedai, driven mad by the taint, used their powers destructively. Lews Therin himself, in his madness, killed Ilyena and his entire family before coming to his senses long enough to take his own life by drawing too much of the One Power. The world was remade, continents shifted, oceans dried up, and new seas formed. The advanced civilization of the Age of Legends was reduced to scattered remnants. Knowledge was lost, and legends took the place of history. More than 3,000 years passed before the seals on the Dark One's prison began to weaken. As they did, the Forsaken began to awaken and escape their prison. Lanfear was among the first to break free. She emerged into a world entirely changed. The unified global civilization had been replaced by separate nations with different cultures and beliefs. The Aes Sedai had become an organization of women based in Tar Valon, while male channelers were hunted and gentled, cut off from the source. And most importantly, the dragon had been reborn as a shepherd from the two rivers named Rand al'Thor. Lanfear, with the ability to sense the One Power itself, recognized Rand immediately for who he was, the reincarnation of Lews Therin Telamon, and her ancient obsession transferred wholly to this young man. Lanfear's approach to Rand was calculated and patient. Rather than revealing herself immediately, she created the persona of Sedane, a beautiful, mysterious woman who appeared to Rand while he was separated from his companions in the early days of his journey. As Sedane, she guided Rand, helped him survive dangerous situations, and subtly planted ideas about his destiny and power. She played on his naivety and his growing awareness of his abilities, positioning herself as a mentor and potential ally. Throughout their early interactions, she tempted him with visions of power. Together, she would tell him, we could rule the world. Man and woman, we could reshape reality itself. She promised him knowledge of the One Power that no one else could provide. She showed him glimpses of her true abilities, hoping to impress and entice him. But Rand, despite his youth and inexperience, sensed something dangerous in Sedane. Her beauty attracted him, but her hunger for power repelled him. And as he grew into his power and identity as the Dragon Reborn, he became increasingly resistant to her manipulations. Lanfear's patience eventually wore thin. When Rand claimed Kalandor, the powerful Sangreal in the Stone of Tear, Lanfear finally revealed her true identity. She appeared to him as the Forsaken and openly declared her desire for him to join her. Rand's rejection was absolute. He recognized her as an enemy and refused her offer. This rejection mirrored the one she had received from Lews Therin thousands of years before, and it rekindled her rage and determination. As Rand's power and confidence grew, Lanfear's tactics changed. She became more desperate, more volatile. She began to view anyone close to Rand as a threat, particularly the women in his life. When she discovered that Rand had developed feelings for Aviendha, one of the Isle Wise Ones, Lanfear's jealousy erupted into violence. At the docks of Kerhien, she attacked Rand and attempted to kill everyone around him, including Aviendha and the Aes Sedai Mierin Eronaile. The confrontation at Kerhien marked the beginning of Lanfear's downfall. Rand was unwilling to fight her directly, partly because he was reluctant to harm her, and partly because some part of him still saw her as the beautiful Sedane who had helped him early in his journey. In the midst of Lanfear's violent rampage, it was Mierin who acted decisively. Recognizing that she couldn't defeat Lanfear directly, the Forsaken was simply too powerful. Mierin tackled her through a twisted redstone doorframe, Terangriel. This magical portal led to the realm of the Alfin and Eilfin, otherworldly beings who granted wishes and answered questions at terrible prices. Both women disappeared, and for a time, they were believed dead. But the Wheel of Time was not done with Lanfear. Part 3, Sedane, the Fallen Star. When Lanfear entered the realm of the Elfin and Eilfin, she encountered beings who fed on human emotions and channeling ability. These snake-like and fox-like creatures drained much of her power before she could escape their world. Significantly weakened, she eventually emerged from their realm only to be captured by the Dark One's forces. The Dark One, displeased with her failures and her independent agenda, killed her physical body and resurrected her in a new form. She returned as Sedane, which means last chance in the old tongue. The name was a mockery, a reminder of her diminished status and the consequences of failing the Dark One again. Her new body was shorter and more slender than her previous form, with silver hair instead of black, though still beautiful. More importantly, her connection to the One Power was severely reduced. Once among the strongest channelers in existence, she was now merely above average. And where once she had operated with relative independence, she now found herself under the direct control of Moradin, the reincarnation of Ishamael, the Dark One's most powerful servant. For Lanfear, who had always valued her beauty, power, and independence above all else, this was a fate worse than death. Her pride was shattered, her ambitions thwarted, and her obsession with Rand al'Thor became tinged with a new emotion: hatred. In the lead-up to Tarmangaiden, the last battle between the forces of light and shadow, Sedane was forced to serve as one of the Dark One's conduits for controlling other channelers through the Dream Spike. She was no longer the proud, independent Forsaken, but a tool used by those she had once considered beneath her. Yet even in this diminished state, her cunning remained. She formulated one final plan to reclaim her former glory and exact revenge on those who had humiliated her. During the last battle, she approached Perrin Ibra in Tel'aran'rhiod, the world of dreams. Perrin, one of Rand's closest friends, had developed into a powerful dreamwalker in his own right. Sedane attempted to manipulate him, offering him power and claiming she had switched sides. She told Perrin that she had seen the error of her ways, that she wanted to help Rand defeat the Dark One. She claimed that she could lead Perrin to Rand through the dream world, allowing him to provide crucial assistance in the final confrontation. But Perrin, who had grown wise to such manipulations, saw through her deception. He recognized that she intended to use him to locate Rand and either kill him or force him to submit to her. In a confrontation that demonstrated how far Perrin had come from the simple blacksmith he once was, he rejected her offer and exposed her true intentions. Sedane's final moments came not in a glorious battle, but in a desperate attempt to salvage her plans. After failing to manipulate Perrin, she attempted to use her remaining power to trap and control whoever she could find in Tel'aran'rhiod. In the confusion of the last battle, as the forces of light and shadow clashed across multiple fronts, Sedane found herself facing Mierin Eronaile once again. Mierin, who had also escaped from the realm of the Elfin and Eilfin, though at great cost to her own power, recognized her old enemy immediately. Their confrontation was brief but decisive. Sedane, still believing in her superiority despite her diminished state, attempted to overpower Mierin. But Mierin, despite her own reduced connection to the power, had gained wisdom and specific knowledge during her time with the Elfin and Eilfin. She knew exactly how to counter Sedane's attacks. In a moment of perfect poetic justice, Mierin, the woman who had defeated Lanfear at the height of her power, now defeated Sedane by burning out her ability to channel completely. In the world of the Wheel of Time, to be burned out meant to lose one's connection to the One Power permanently, a fate considered by many channelers to be worse than death. Sedane, once Lanfear, once Mierin Eronaile, was left powerless. The woman who had dreamed of godhood, who had broken the world to pursue power and love, was reduced to an ordinary human. No longer of use to the Dark One, no longer a threat to Randall Thor, she faded into obscurity as the last battle raged on. Records of her final fate are unclear. Some accounts suggest she was killed in the chaos of the last battle. Others imply she survived, condemned to live out her days as a powerless shell of her former self. But regardless of her physical end, her legacy was sealed. She would be remembered as one of the most dangerous and tragic figures in the history of the world. Lanfear's story represents one of the most profound cautionary tales in the Wheel of Time saga. Born as Mierin Eronaile, she possessed extraordinary talent and potential that could have made her one of the greatest heroes of her age. Instead, her inability to accept rejection, combined with her narcissistic need for power and control, led her to commit one of the most catastrophic acts in history, opening the bore that released the Dark One into the world. What distinguishes Lanfear from other Forsaken is the complexity of her motivation. While others serve the shadow for philosophical reasons, revenge or power, Lanfear's path was driven by a twisted form of love. Her obsession with Luz Theron remained unchanged across 3,000 years, transferring intact to Randall Thor. This psychological rigidity ultimately led to her downfall, as she proved incapable of growth or adaptation. The true tragedy of Lanfear isn't just the evil she committed, but the good she might have accomplished. Her brilliance, power, and determination were wasted pursuing an unattainable goal, the forced love of a man who had rejected her. In the end, she lost everything that defined her. Her beauty was altered, her power diminished, and her independence stripped away. Lanfear's legacy serves as a reminder that even the greatest evils often begin with recognizable human emotions. Her journey from respected researcher to Forsaken didn't begin with malice, but with love, ambition, and wounded pride. It was the corruption of these natural feelings that created the Daughter of the Night, a woman who broke the world for love and lost everything in the process.